My fiancé accidentally sent me a voice memo meant for his sister, and he called me safe but dull. I deleted the wedding countdown and walked away without saying a word. My hands trembled, my knees buckled, and my entire future dissolved into dust right therein. The sterile hospital corridor. 6 weeks before my wedding, I heard my fiancé's voice crack through my earbuds, confessing a betrayal so profound, it stole the very air from my lungs. I stood frozen in that fluorescent glare on Memorial General's 3rd floor, the phone. Trembling. Jasper's voice, lightly slurred and intimately confessional, whispered through my earbuds, "Bryn, I don't know what to do anymore." I pressed my back against the wall, my breath catching in my throat. Room 312's call bell chimed insistently down the hall, a sound from another universe. All I could do was listen to my fiancé's words, each one a shard of glass. The wedding's in 6 weeks, and I wake up every morning feeling trapped. A heavy sigh followed, then the unmistakable clink of ice cubes. My blood ran cold. Lola's reliable, she'll make a good mom someday, but there's no spark, you know. Never really was. My free hand flew to my mouth, pressing hard enough to bruise. The call bell rang again, more urgently this time, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It was all happening somewhere else, not here, not to me. Sometimes I still think about Leora, Jasper continued, his voice dropping lower. What might have happened if she hadn't moved to Seattle? With Lola, I fake it most of the time. Fake it. Fake it. The words hammered at me like physical blows. The fluorescent lights above suddenly seemed harsh, exposing everything. I reached for the wall to steady myself, my engagement ring catching the light, a diamond-bright mockery. Was it really just 14 hours ago that I'd kissed him goodbye, his coffee already poured in his favorite mug? The wedding planning folder sat on our kitchen counter, overflowing with dreams. During my lunch break, I'd picked up 3 bridal magazines, their glossy covers promising perfect days, perfect lives. "Merritt, you okay?" Sarah's voice cut through my haze, and I looked up to find my fellow nurse watching me, concern etched on her face. I straightened, yanking the earbuds from my ears, as if they'd burned me. "Fine," I managed, my voice sounding distant. "Just checking a message." "Mr. Harmon's been hitting his call button for 5 minutes," she said, her eyes narrowing. "Everything all right?" I nodded, pocketing my phone. "Sorry, on my way." For the next 6 hours, I moved through my rounds like a ghost in nurse's scrubs. My body performed each task with practiced precision, checking vitals, adjusting 4 drips, dispensing medications. But my mind? It replayed Jasper's words on an endless loop. Asterisk reliable, no spark. Fake it most of the time, asterisk Mr. Harmon complained about his breakfast. Mrs. Weber needed help too. The bathroom. The new admission in 309 had questions about her medication. I smiled, explained. Assisted, all while feeling like I was watching myself from across the room, completely detached. My phone buzzed in my pocket at 7:17 a.m., then again at 7:22. By 8 o'clock, it had vibrated 5 times. I didn't need to look to know it was Jasper, realizing his mistake. Attempting damage control. When I finally checked during my break, the text messages confirmed it. Asterisk babe, I need to talk to you. Call me when you get this. Lola, please. I was just drunk. Babe, I was just drunk. Call me. It wasn't what it sounded like. Asterisk, I silenced my phone, sliding it back into my pocket. The morning stretched endlessly before me, filled with call bells and medication rounds and vital signs, the comforting rhythm of responsibilities I knew how to fulfill. Unlike loving Jasper, which I apparently never did correctly. Afternoon broke as my shift finally ended. In the locker room, I changed mechanically, avoiding my reflection in the mirror. Outside, the hospital parking lot was quiet. I sat in my car, keys in hand, and finally let the tears come. I thought about the signs I'd ignored for months, maybe years. The way his eyes drifted when I talked about our future. How our kisses had grown briefer, more perfunctory. The subtle flinch when I touched him unexpectedly. The way he pulled back during intimacy, going through motions without truly being present. Instead of starting the engine, I stared at my phone. 3 more messages had arrived, more explanations, more excuses. My thumb hovered over the call button, but something stopped me. Not yet. I needed to let this truth settle into my bones first. Each morning for 3 years, I'd driven past wildflower gardens, the wedding venue we booked 6 months ago. Today, it looked different, a mirage shimmering in the early morning light. Beautiful, but insubstantial. I used to slow down to admire it. Today, I pressed the accelerator and drove past without a glance. Outside our apartment building 30 minutes later, I sat with the engine off, watching the sunrise paint our bedroom window gold. Inside, Jasper was waiting, rehearsing explanations, perhaps believing I'd accept whatever story he offered, because that's what reliable, practical Lola always does. Tears streamed freely now, dripping onto my scrub pants, creating small dark circles on the faded blue fabric. For the first time in our relationship, I didn't rush to wipe them away. The sun spilled through our living room blinds, casting prison bar shadows across Jasper's face. He sat on the edge of our couch, the one we spent 3 weekends shopping for, his shoulders hunched, still wearing yesterday's wrinkled button-down. His eyes were rimmed red from what I assumed was a sleepless night. Lola. His voice cracked, hoarse and desperate, as I set my bag by the door. Thank God. I've been calling all night. I stood just inside the doorway, unwilling to step fully into what now felt like someone else's life. Our engagement photos stared down from the wall at smiling strangers caught in a moment that never existed. I can explain, Jasper said, rising from the couch. It was just drunk talk. Pre-wedding jitters. He crossed the room but stopped when I took a step back. Every guy gets cold feet. My gaze drifted to our refrigerator where the wedding countdown calendar hung. 47 days circled in bright red marker. 6 weeks and 5 days until I was supposed to walk down the aisle toward a man who had to fake his feelings for me. I want to hear it again. My voice surprised me with its steadiness. What? Jasper blinked. The voice memo. I want to hear all of it. Color drained from his face. Lola. It doesn't matter what I said. I was drunk and if it doesn't matter, then you can play it for me. His hesitation told me everything. When he finally pulled out his phone, his fingers trembled against the screen. I deleted it. Then we'll listen to the one on my phone. I pulled it from my pocket, watching panic flash across his face. There's more, isn't there? The question hung between us. Jasper sank back onto the couch, head dropping into his hands. It wasn't the first message. The confession landed like a physical blow. I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself. Show me. Reluctantly, he unlocked his phone and passed it to me. The message thread. With Bryn stretched back months, his sister counseling him through doubts he never once shared with me. She deserves better than someone half-committed, Bryn had written 3 weeks ago. I. No, but breaking it off now would devastate her, he'd replied. Each message burned through me. But I forced myself to keep scrolling, to absorb every word of this betrayal, not just the drunken confession, but the sober, calculated deception that preceded it. I handed his phone back, suddenly feeling taller, stronger. Something crystallized inside, a clarity that cut through months of fog. How long? I asked. Jasper looked up, confusion crossing his features. How long have you been settling for me? I haven't been. Don't, the word came out sharp enough to make him flinch, at least have the decency to be honest now. My phone buzzed in my hand. A text from Aaron. My spare room is ready whenever you need it, the message. Unlocked a memory. Aaron's concerned face over coffee 6 months ago. Are you sure he's as invested as you are? I dismissed her worries, convinced she was projecting her own relationship fears onto mine. I'd chosen Jasper's half-hearted reassurances over my best friend's genuine concern. The contrast hit me with stunning clarity. Since Leora moved, Jasper finally admitted, his voice small. I tried to move on. I thought, eventually I'd feel with you what I felt with her. I nodded, absorbing this final confirmation of what I already knew. I'm going to pack some things. Lola, please. He stood, following me, toward our bedroom. We can work through this. Couples therapy, postponing the wedding, whatever you need. I moved mechanically through the room, pulling clothes from hangers, toiletries from drawers. Jasper's plea shifted between apologies and justifications, a desperate pendulum swing. It was one mistake, he insisted as I zipped my suitcase. It wasn't, I corrected him, my voice calm. The mistake was pretending to love me the way I deserved. That wasn't one night. That was 3 years. In the bathroom, I removed my engagement ring, feeling the slight indentation it left behind. Back in the kitchen, I placed it deliberately on the counter beside the coffee maker, where he'll find it tomorrow morning. From my purse, I took out a notepad and pen. My hand didn't shake as I wrote. I deserve someone who doesn't have to fake it. Jasper stood in the doorway watching me with dawning comprehension. Where will you go? Instead of answering, I pulled out my phone and dialed Erin's number. She answered on the first ring. I'm on my way, I said. Jasper made one last attempt as I lifted my suitcase. Lola, please don't throw away 3 years over one voice memo. I looked at him, really looked at him. Perhaps, for the first time. Not at the man I wanted him to be, but at who he actually is, someone who settled, who compromised, who never fully chose me. I'm not throwing away 3 years, I told him. I'm saving the rest of my life. The sound of the door closing behind me echoed with finality. In the hallway of our apartment building, I took my first breath as someone who refuses to be anyone's second choice. 3 days later, the early morning light filtered through unfamiliar curtains, casting gentle shadows across boxes stacked against the wall of Erin's guest room. 3 days worth of my hastily packed life sat in cardboard containers labeled with a black Sharpie, asterisk clothes, bathroom, books, asterisk I hadn't unpacked beyond necessities, as if keeping everything boxed might somehow contain my grief. My phone buzzed against the nightstand. The calendar notification glowed brightly. Asterisk wedding dress. Fitting 10 a.m. Asterisk my stomach clenched. I'd forgotten to cancel the appointment. Another item for the growing list of things to dismantle. A soft knock at the door pulled me from the spiral of thoughts. Brought you some tea, Erin, said, pushing the door open with her hip, a steaming mug in each hand. Her red hair was pulled into a messy bun, her face free of makeup. She set one mug on the nightstand and sank onto the edge of the bed without saying more. This is why I love her. No empty platitudes, no forced cheer. Just presence. Thanks, I whispered, wrapping my hands around the warm ceramic. Earl Grey. With a splash of milk, she remembered how I take it. The small kindness brought tears to my eyes. Bad night? She asked, noticing the rumpled sheets. I nodded. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his voice. I fake it most of the time, over and over. My sleep had been broken and fitful, dreams merging with memories until I wasn't sure which was which. In one, I stood in a wedding dress while Jasper recorded a voice memo to Bryn. In another, I was back in the hospital corridor, but this time everyone could hear the message playing through speakers overhead. Your phone's been lighting up all morning, Erin said carefully. I glanced at the screen. 17 text messages, 3 missed calls. I scrolled through them without opening any. Asterisk Lola, please call me. We need to talk. You're overreacting. It was just drunk talk. 3 years and you won't even hear me out? I deserve a chance to explain. You're throwing away everything over one mistake. Asterisk. The progression was striking, from apologetic to accusatory in less than 72 hours. His final message landed like a slap. Asterisk, this is exactly why I've been feeling trapped. You shut down instead of working through problems. Asterisk. He's really something, Erin muttered, reading over my shoulder. I set the phone face down. I should block him. Probably, she agreed, but didn't push. The doorbell rang, startling us both. Aaron frowned. I'm not expecting anyone. When she returned minutes later, Bryn followed her into the bedroom. Jasper's sister looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She hovered in the doorway, uncertainty written across her face. I'll give you two some privacy, Aaron said, squeezing my shoulder as she left. I'm sorry for showing up like this, Bryn said, perching awkwardly on the chair in the corner. I've been trying to call, but I'm not really checking messages, I finished for her. Silence stretched between us. 3 days ago, this woman was going to be my sister-in-law. Now, we were strangers connected by betrayal. He doesn't know I'm here, she finally said. I needed to see you. To explain. His sighed. The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. She shook her head, eyes filling with tears. No, to apologize and to tell you the truth, which is something my brother apparently couldn't do. What followed shattered the remaining pieces of my heart. Bryn spoke carefully, each word measured, as she revealed that Jasper's doubts weren't new or temporary. Since our first date, he compared me to Leora. I was steady where she was exciting, reliable where she was unpredictable. He'd convinced himself these were good things, that he was making a mature choice. He did care about you, Bryn insisted, though the words brought no comfort. He just settled, I finished for her. She didn't deny it. After Bryn leaves, I sat among my boxes and made calls I never imagined making. Each vendor. Conversation followed the same pattern, their initial confusion, followed by awkward sympathy. I'm so sorry to hear that, Miss Merritt. No, I understand about the non-refundable deposit. Yes, I'm certain. The wedding is cancelled. By the fourth call, my voice steadied. By the eighth, I was almost numb. The caterer, the florist, the DJ, the venue, the photographer, the officiant. 3 years of relationship and 6 months of planning, dismantled in 47 minutes. The financial reality was sobering, nearly $7,000 in lost deposits. But as I made the final call, a strange sense of relief washed over me. Each cancellation felt like cutting a thread that bound me to a future built on lies. My phone pinged with new messages as news spread, friends expressing shock and offering support. My mother's confused voicemail asking if this is just cold feet. My sister's fierce loyalty. He never deserved you anyway. The afternoons stretched before me, empty of plans for the first time in months. Without conscious decision, I opened my laptop and navigated to the hospital's internal job board. The nurse shift coordinator position was still open, the one I'd considered applying for last year, before Jasper mentioned wanting to try for a promotion that would require longer hours from him. Someone else can take it, I'd said then. Asterisk, your career is hitting such an important phase. Asterisk, I hadn't even realized I was putting his ambitions before mine. Until this moment. I updated my resume with fierce concentration, no longer pausing to consider how each career move might affect our shared schedule. When I hit submit, something uncurled inside my chest, a quiet pride in my own capabilities that has nothing to do with anyone else. My phone rang 20 minutes later. It was Gloria from HR. Lola, just saw your application come through. Any chance you're free for an interview tomorrow morning? The director's been hoping you'd apply. Tomorrow, I repeated, surprised by the quick response. We've had other applicants, but honestly, we've been waiting for you to step up. You're already informally doing half the job anyway. After we set the time, I sat in stunned silence. They'd been waiting for me to step up. All this time I'd been dimming my own light, convinced it was necessary for our relationship to work. The next day brought unexpected allies. Sarah from the night shift texted to say she'd cover my weekend shifts if I needed time. The charge nurse left sticky notes of encouragement in my locker. My supervisor cornered me in the break room to say, whatever you need, just ask. Each night, Erin sat with me through tears and rage and confusion. She passed tissues without comment and refills wine glasses without judgment. When I apologized for being a mess, she cut me off. You showed up for 2 weeks when Mike left me. This is what friends do. On my first day back at work, Mrs. Abernathy, an 83-year-old patient recovering from hip surgery, noticed my ring finger was bare. "Wedding's off?" she asked bluntly when I checked her vitals. I nodded, expecting the usual sympathy. Instead, she patted my hand. "Good for you, honey. Better to find out now than 20 years and 3 kids later. I stayed with the wrong man for 42 years. You just dodged a bullet." 2 weeks after leaving Jasper, I realized I'd developed new routines. Coffee on errands, balcony before work, yoga videos in the evening, journal writing before bed. Small rituals that belonged solely to me, not shaped around another person's preferences or schedule. I still cried. Sometimes. I still checked my phone for messages I'd resolved not to answer. But each day the weight lifted a little more, and beneath the sadness, something new and fragile took root, the first green shoots of a life that is entirely my own. A month later, the apartment key felt impossibly heavy in my palm as I followed the property manager through the doorway. Sunlight streamed through uncovered windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. At 750 square feet, the one-bedroom unit was half the size of what Jasper and I shared, but it was 3 blocks from Memorial General, close enough to walk on good days. "Kitchen's original from the 80s, the manager says, gesturing toward avocado-colored countertops and white appliances bearing mysterious stains. Owner's thinking of updating eventually, but rent stays lower this way." I ran my fingers along the laminate surface, feeling each nick and scratch. Our old kitchen gleamed with stainless steel and granite, a showroom fantasy Jasper insisted on. This worn space with its battle scars felt honest in a way our perfect kitchen never did. "I'll take it," I said, the words escaping before I'd fully considered them. 20 minutes later, I signed my name Lola Merritt, just Lola Merritt, in the lease agreement. My signature looked smaller than usual, hesitant on the empty line where a second name should be. The property manager slid the keys across the desk, and I closed my fingers around them. Terror and exhilaration battled in my chest, my heart fluttering like a trapped bird. For the first time in years, no one else's opinion factored into my decision. The thought left me breathless. "Congratulations," the manager said. "It's all yours." "All mine," the phrase followed me around the empty apartment as I measured windows for curtains, pacing out furniture. Arrangements in my head. All mine to fill. All mine to afford. All mine to come home to. The emptiness echoed my footsteps back to me. 2 days later, Jasper appeared in the hospital lobby, a bouquet of stargazer lilies almost obscuring his face. My favorite flower, a detail that felt manipulative now. From behind the nurse's station, I watched him charm the receptionist, his shoulders relaxed as if this was a casual visit rather than an ambush. "Your fiancé's here," Sarah whispered, the word fiancé striking like a slap. I hadn't told everyone yet. "He's not my fiancé anymore," I said, the word still foreign on my tongue. "Can you tell him I'm with a patient?" I slipped into the staff bathroom, counting breaths until my pulse steadied. When I returned 20 minutes later, the lilies sat abandoned at the desk. Sarah shot me a sympathetic look. "He said he'll catch you another time," seemed pretty sure about it. The next morning, Ryan texted that he ran into Jasper at the gym, totally random, but he asked about you. 2 days after that, Melissa mentioned a coffee shop encounter where Jasper looked absolutely heartbroken. The staged coincidences piled up like the spring pollen coating. My windshield each morning, impossible to ignore, increasingly irritating. Then came the Tuesday evening call from Eleanor Hale, Jasper's mother, her voice wavering with practiced vulnerability. "Marriage isn't always easy, sweetheart," she said, as if I'd simply hit a rough patch rather than discovered a fundamental deception. "Jim and I went through terrible times before our 30th anniversary. Everyone has doubts sometimes, cold feet. Your generation gives up too easily when things get hard. With all due respect, I finally said, my voice steadier than I felt. Your son told another woman he's been faking his feelings for me. That's not cold feet, that's a frozen heart. The line went silent before Eleanor recovered. People say things they don't mean when they're stressed. I thought of the voice memo, Jasper's unguarded, slightly drunk confession. Nothing about it sounded stressed or uncertain. It sounded like relief at finally speaking his truth. When Jasper's email arrived the next day with the subject line, asterisk, we can fix this if you just try, asterisk, something hardened inside me. The message detailed couples therapists he'd researched, articles about knee-jerk breakups, and a closing plea, we've invested 3 years, don't throw it all away without even trying. I stared at those words, if you just try, as if the breakdown of our relationship were solely my responsibility, as if I hadn't spent years trying while he'd been faking it. That night I drafted careful responses to mutual friends, polite but firm. I appreciate your concern, but I need space right now, and to the more persistent ones, I understand Jasper is your friend too, but please respect my request for distance. Aaron helped me pack the last of Jasper's belongings into neatly labeled boxes, his coffee mugs, his books, the framed concert tickets from our second date, items that once felt precious now felt like artifacts from someone else's life. I'll drop these off tomorrow, Aaron said, sealing the final box with packing tape. You don't need to see him. I closed my social media accounts the same day, not ready to witness the public performance of Jasper's broken heart. The silence that followed felt like the first deep breath after swimming underwater too long. When the promotion offer came, nurse shift coordinator, with a significant pay increase, I nearly dropped my phone. I'd applied weeks ago, before everything collapsed, never expecting to be chosen. Jasper's text arrived minutes after I shared the news with my parents, asterisk, you never mention wanting that role, asterisk, my thumbs hovered over the screen before typing, asterisk, you never asked what I wanted, asterisk, the realization struck me then, clear as the hospital's code blue alarm. How many parts of myself I'd folded away to fit into the spaces Jasper allowed. How I'd learned to dim my ambitions when they outshone his, to speak more softly when my voice carried farther. 3 weeks later, I spotted Jasper at Antonio's Italian bistro. He sat across from a slender woman with copper hair, leaning forward, completely engaged. Something familiar about his posture, the tilt of his head, the animated hands. This was Jasper fully present, fully himself. Something I'd glimpsed only in our earliest days. Our eyes met across the restaurant. Guilt flashed across his face before he could mask it, but what surprised me most was my own reaction. Not jealousy or pain, but a calm certainty, confirmation that what we had wasn't worth salvaging. I offered a simple nod, a goodbye without words, and turned back to my meal. For the first time since the voice memo shattered my world, I felt not broken but beginning. 3 weeks later, the coffee shop buzzed with afternoon energy, a place Jasper and I had never been together. I chose it deliberately, neutral territory, 16 miles from our old apartment. Far enough from the hospital that I wouldn't run into colleagues. Through the window I watched him arrive, checking his reflection in his car window before entering. Classic Jasper, always concerned with appearances. I touched the neckline of my burgundy blouse, purchased with my first shift coordinator paycheck. My hair fell in loose waves instead of my usual practical ponytail. The woman in the restroom mirror earlier looked like a stranger, someone stronger than the Lola who existed before everything. Jasper spotted me in the corner booth and froze momentarily. His eyes widened, taking in the changes, not just the clothes or hair, but something else he couldn't quite name. Something in my posture perhaps, something in my eyes. You look different, he said, sliding into the booth across from me. I am different. I wrapped my hands around my coffee mug, anchoring myself to its warmth. His fingers tapped an erratic rhythm against his cup. He'd rehearsed this conversation. I could see it in the careful arrangement of his expression, concerned but hopeful. I'd spent 3 years studying the nuances of his face. I knew when he was performing. "I've been thinking about what happened," he began, voice modulated to hit that perfect note. Between remorseful and reasonable. It was cold feet, stress about the wedding expenses, people. Get scared before big commitments. I talked to my therapist. "We can postpone the wedding, take couples counseling, whatever you need." His hand inched toward mine across the table. I broke things off with Rachel. That was nothing, a mistake when I was confused. My eyebrow raised. Involuntarily. "Rachel? The woman from the restaurant wasn't Leora?" A flicker crossed his face. Caught in a detail he didn't expect me to notice. He recovered quickly. "That's what I'm saying. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I know that now." The old Lola would have softened here. Grateful for crumbs of affection. The new Lola sat straighter. "Do you still think about Leora?" I asked, my voice steady despite the hammering in my chest. His hesitation lasted only seconds, but it might as well have been a confession written across the sky. "No, that was just drunk talk. Would you have told me about your doubts if I hadn't heard that message?" The silence stretched between us, his answer clearer in what remained unsaid. Around us, life continued. Baristas called out orders. A child laughed at a nearby table. Someone's phone chimed with a notification. The world kept turning while mine had changed its axis. "We had good times, Jasper." My voice sounded different to my own ears, clearer, more certain. "I'm grateful for them. But I can't build a life with someone who has to talk himself into loving me." "That's not fair," he protested. "Every relationship has ups and downs. You're throwing away 3 years over one mistake." It wasn't one mistake. It was a pattern I chose not to see. I traced the rim of my mug. "When you told Bryn you had to fake it with me, you were telling the truth. That's the problem. Your most honest moment wasn't with me. It was about me. You're being dramatic. Relationships take work. My parents have been married 40 years and I won't be someone's reliable option, Jasper. I won't be the practical choice, the good enough. I deserve someone who chooses me with their whole heart, not someone who settles for me because I'm safe." Something shifted in his expression then. The charming mask slipped, revealing what lurked beneath: irritation, then anger. His jaw tightened. "You know what your problem is, Lola? You've been reading too many romance novels. Real life isn't some fairy tale." His voice hardened. "You'll regret throwing away a good thing. Do you think it's easy to find someone at 30? With your schedule?" I absorbed the blow, letting the words settle into my bones. This is who he truly is. Someone who believes I should be grateful for the scraps of his affection. Someone who thinks I need him more than he needs me. "There it is," I said quietly. "The truth at last." I stood, placing exact change for my untouched coffee on the table. His eyes followed the movement. Disbelief replacing anger. He expected me to crumble, to negotiate, to cling to what we had. "Lola, wait. Being alone isn't what scares me." I met his gaze directly. "Settling is." I walked out of the coffee shop into the autumn sunshine. Each step felt like crossing a boundary. Into new territory, unmapped, uncertain, but undeniably mine. Behind me, through the window, Jasper remained frozen in the booth, his reflection growing smaller as I moved forward. For the first time in 3 years, I breathed without waiting for someone else's approval. The air tastes different out here. It tastes like freedom. 3 months after the encounter, morning light streamed through the east-facing windows of my apartment, casting golden rectangles across the freshly painted lavender walls. 3 months ago, this space was just empty rooms and bare walls. Now, potted plants lined my windowsills, African violets unfurling purple blooms, a peace lily stretching toward the sun, and the stubborn spider plant I rescued from the hospital break room that now cascaded over my bookshelf. I ran my fingers over the smooth surface of my coffee mug, still marveling at how the smallest decisions now belonged entirely to me. Simple things like choosing this particular shade of lavender for my walls when Jasper always insisted on practical beige feel like quiet acts of rebellion. Yesterday marked what would have been our wedding day. I waited for the tsunami of grief, braced myself for it, even kept the day clear just in case. But instead of devastation, I felt something unexpected: relief, tinged with a gentle sadness for the woman who once believed that love meant making yourself smaller. My phone chimed with a notification. Aaron had tagged me in photos from last weekend's staff picnic. I swiped through them, pausing at one of me laughing at something Dr. Friedman said, head thrown back, eyes crinkled. The woman in that photo isn't forcing a smile or posing carefully, she's just happy. The bell above the cafe door jingled as I entered, grateful for the blast of air conditioning. After the humid June afternoon, I just settled at a corner table when I spotted her, unmistakable, even though we'd never met. Leora Thompson, her dark curls exactly as they appeared in Jasper's old Instagram photos, stood at the counter ordering coffee. My stomach nodded. I considered leaving, slipping out before she noticed me. But something rooted me to my seat: curiosity, perhaps, or some final puzzle piece I needed to find. When she turns, our eyes meet. Recognition flashes across her face. Jasper must have shown her my photos too. She hesitates, coffee in hand, clearly contemplating her escape route. I surprised myself by raising my hand in a small wave, then gesturing to the empty chair across from me. More surprising still is when she actually walks over and sits down. This is weird, she says, setting her cup down carefully. No pretense, no forced pleasantries. Completely weird. I agree, and somehow we both laugh. The initial awkwardness dissolves into something unexpected: understanding. We talk about Jasper, but not in the way I imagined. No competition, no comparison. We burned hot, Leora says, stirring her coffee absently. Passionate but volatile. More drama than actual love. She meets my eyes directly. He romanticizes intensity, but can't handle genuine intimacy. What he wants and what he needs never align. Her words settle over me like puzzle pieces clicking into place. He admired your steadiness, she continues, but couldn't value what he truly needed. Something unwound inside my chest, a final knot of doubt I hadn't realized was still there. 2 weeks later, I sat at a corner table in Erin's favorite restaurant, surrounded by friends, celebrating her birthday. Dr. Friedman Michael sat beside me, our conversation flowing easily throughout dinner. When his hand brushes mine as he passes the bread basket, I felt that flutter of possibility. Would you like to get dinner sometime? He asks as we wait for our cars at the valet stand. The old Lola would have said yes automatically, flattered by his interest. The new one knows better. I'm focusing on myself right now, I tell him, but I'd like to be friends. Instead of disappointment, I saw respect in his eyes. I'd like that too. On my apartment balcony that night, I watched the sunset paint the sky in watercolor strokes of pink and gold. The wedding planning binder sat open on my lap, its contents removed, replaced with career goals, certification plans, and notes from my mentoring sessions with Tessa, the new nurse who reminds me so much of myself 3 years ago. I opened my journal and wrote, I'm not someone to settle for. I'm someone to choose with clarity, not compromise. As I closed the journal, a peaceful smile settled on my face. Tomorrow stretches before me, undefined, unplanned, and entirely mine.